Manx Radio's update with Lewis Foster.
Fastamai, good evening and welcome along to Update on Manx Radio. It's 5 o'clock on Friday the 30th of May. Time for half an hour of the latest news from the Isle of Man. Coming up, police have thanked members of the public for their support as a murder investigation gets underway following an incident in Ramsey yesterday. A review of Manx Care's Adult Learning Disability Service has identified widespread failings in residential care. And the chair of Castletown Commissioners weighs in on delays to a public housing development in the ancient capital. All that and more coming up, plus the latest weather and sport for you, as well as what to watch out for on the roads this evening. Text 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com. And we'll start as always with the latest headlines from Siobhan Fletcher. Fastamai, Siobhan.
Fastamai. A murder investigation is underway after a local person died following a serious incident in Ramsey yesterday. Authorities have also confirmed another local has been arrested in connection with the matter. An online portal has been set up by police to allow those who may have information, including imagery, to submit it to the investigation team. Speaking on Manx Radio Motorsport, Inspector Paul Kemp says images and the like should only be shared with police, not on wider social media, for the sake of the families involved.
Not only are we trying to seek the truth of what's gone on, we're also trying to do that with a purpose, and that's to look after the families of everybody that's involved in this.
A review of Manx Care's Adult Learning Disability Service has identified widespread failings in residential care. Independent inspectors say the system is outdated, overly institutional and lacks strategic direction. The Isle of Man Steam Packet has updated its sailing schedule for this weekend following weather disruption in recent days. From tonight through to Sunday evening, Manannan's sailings will depart 2 hours later than originally scheduled. And 3 separate qualifying lap records were set during a busy TT qualifying session this afternoon. One of them was in the Supersport session as Dean Harrison flew around the course on his Honda machine. He clocked 128.093 miles per hour and told Radio TT afterwards that several things fell into place for him on that run.
Felt okay, I got a nice clear lap. I got a lot of traffic on lap 1. And then lap 2 were quite clear, so it was nice to just get a nice a lap by myself to sort of figure a few things out. So we've got I'm going to make some changes to the bike, but we've got a good idea which direction we're going to go in now, so it's good. There's so much going on, and the practice week's a little bit up and down, but everyone's in the same boat, so I feel pretty good with the bike.
Roads around the course are currently open, but will shut again at 6 for tonight's second qualifying session. Further afield, the man accused of driving into crowds during Liverpool's Premier League trophy parade has been remanded in custody. The BBC has been told to pay former Sinn Féin leader Gerry Adams £84,000 in damages following a hearing at Dublin's High Court. And Taylor Swift has bought back master recordings of her first 6 albums, ending a long-running battle over the ownership of her music. They're your headlines. I'll be back with your news at 6.
Go on my head. Thank you, Siobhan. A reminder, the Mountain Road is staying closed between whilst there's a pause in tonight's qualifying session, but the rest of the roads around the TT course are currently open. The latest weather brought to you now by Manx Glass and Glazing. Dry to start with sunny intervals, then a risk of low cloud developing on higher ground later this evening and overnight. A few outbreaks of drizzle by the end of the night, light to moderate south or southwest wind, and a minimum temperature of 11 degrees. Overcast to start tomorrow with some outbreaks of drizzle, as well as extensive hill fog and some coastal mist in places. The cloud will gradually lift and break towards lunchtime with some sunshine breaking through for a time before a spell of rain arrives from the west in the afternoon, clearing away early evening, fine conditions thereafter. The moderate to fresh southwest wind will increase fresh to strong as the rain arrives, best temperature of 15 degrees tomorrow. Sunset tonight at 9:38, sunrise tomorrow morning at 6 minutes before 5.
Fuel the fun at the TT races with Tesco. Visit your local store to top up your tank with snacks and refreshments for race day. Tesco, every little helps.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
If you run a small business or just need more room in the back, Philshaw Vehicles has the perfect van or light commercial for all your needs and can sort out any finance. Based in the Tremode Estate, view philshawvehicles.im or call 49 51 49.
A great night's sleep got even better with Zed's bedding store. From quality Beldorm bed linen and mattress protectors, fleece and woven throws, to luxury duvets from the fine bedding company, Zed's Bedding Ramsey, next to Isle of Man Bank.
SMS Trading have moved to 3 St Paul's Square, Ramsey. For flat pack to fully built, new or second-hand furniture, SMS Trading offer all-island delivery and man-in-a-van service. Call 315151 or find SMS Trading on Facebook.
At Begode Cattery, we have been caring for animals for over 50 years. As a cattery, we care for customers' cats and treat them as our own. Contact Begode Cattery on 676 947 or find Begode Cattery on Facebook.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
And the time now is 5:05. Police have thanked members of the public who offered their support to officers and emergency services in Ramsey yesterday. A murder investigation is underway after a local person died following a serious incident in the area of Close Dreen at around 20 to 4 in the afternoon. Authorities have also confirmed another local has been arrested in connection with the matter. Inspector Paul Kemp from the Isle of Man Constabulary is urging anyone with information to come forward.
Sadly, the police responded to an incident yesterday in Close Dreen, Ramsey, where despite the medical intervention by officers, members of the public and other emergency services, a local person tragically died. So we're currently in the middle of a murder investigation. That investigation is ongoing, so I can't say any more than that really, but what I do want to do is first of all thank the public. We had a lot of support over this, a lot of people trying to help out. We are conscious though that out in the public there is footage, or potentially there is footage and images, and some people may know something that we need to know about. So I would ask people, there's a portal that's been set up online, to go to mipp.police.uk. That's mipp.police.uk, and there you can give your details, you can upload some information, and you can upload footage as well, if there is footage out there. Also Crime Stoppers as well, always worth reminding everybody, utilise Crime Stoppers if you wish to remain anonymous on 0800 555 111.
Well, you mentioned about uploading the material.
Yes.
You shouldn't be sharing it between each other. I mean,
no, absolutely. No. There shouldn't be anything getting shared out there. This is a very sensitive investigation. There's families at the end of this, at the end of the day, and it's really, really important that not only are we trying to seek the truth of what's gone on, we're also trying to do that with a purpose, and that's to look after the families of everybody that's involved in this. So yes, please don't share it. Go to mipp.police.uk where you can upload it and you can actually comment and let us know what you know.
Inspector Paul Kemp from the Isle of Man Constabulary there. We will, of course, bring you any further information regarding that investigation when it becomes available. Well, meanwhile, politicians have been expressing their shock and sadness following yesterday's incident. Sian Cowper has this report.
Chief Minister Alfred Cannon issued a statement last night following news that a murder investigation had been launched. He said, "My thoughts and deepest condolences are with the family and friends of the victim at this dreadful time, and also with our emergency services who are responding to this incident." He also stressed the importance of the public following the police's request not to speculate or share distressing material online. One of the town's MHKs, Laurie Hooper, said, "This is awful news and devastating for our small community. I appreciate there'll be a lot of concern and anxiety right now, but I would urge people to refrain from speculating and to allow those of our friends and neighbours directly affected the time and space they need at what must be an impossible time." His constituency colleague Alex Allinson said, "My thoughts and sympathy is with the family and friends left to grieve after the events in Ramsey yesterday afternoon. The constabulary need time to fully investigate this tragic incident, and our close community need time to come to terms with what has happened in our town." The area's local authority, Ramsey Town Commissioners, issued a statement this morning which says, "We're deeply saddened to hear about the tragic incident that's taken a life in our community. Our thoughts and heartfelt condolences go out to the families and loved ones affected during this incredibly difficult time. Please let us all show respect by allowing the authorities to do their work and avoid speculating or spreading unconfirmed information. At times like these, kindness, empathy and sensitivity matter most. A number of other MHKs have also taken to social media to share their condolences and voice support for the police's message.
Sean Calbert with that report.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
The time now is 5:10. A major review into residential care for adults with learning disabilities on the Isle of Man has uncovered what it describes as significant and long-standing failings. The report, commissioned by Manx Care, points to a lack of strategic direction, poor living conditions, and care that is often far from person-centred. Christian Jones has been through the findings. Fastamai, Christian, what exactly does this review say?
Fastamai, Lewis. Well, this is quite a comprehensive and hard-hitting report commissioned following safeguarding concerns raised last autumn. It looks specifically at the Adult Learning Disability Service, otherwise known as ALDS, and it found that the current residential care model is outdated, overly reliant on institutional settings, and in many cases fails to meet the basic principles of modern inclusive care. It highlights examples of residents being confined to their rooms, having limited or no access to communal areas, or being placed in environments that don't match their needs, often because of staffing pressures, poor placement decisions, or a lack of suitable alternatives.
Well, it sounds concerning. Is this a question of poor frontline care, or is it more systemic?
Well, that's interesting because the report actually makes a point of recognising the dedication and compassion of frontline staff, but says they're operating in a system that lacks vision, coordination and resources. The current strategy for adult learning disability services, which was due to run from 2020 through till 2025, is described as inadequate and poorly implemented. It says services have drifted with individual homes working in isolation without clear planning or shared goals. Inspectors also found high vacancy rates, low staff morale, and cases where staff didn't have the right training to identify safeguarding concerns or to actually provide enabling independence-focused care.
Right, OK. So what changes are being called for?
Well, there is a strong emphasis on structural reform. The report calls for better matching of residents to appropriate housing, the commissioning of a broader range of community-based services, and the development of a long-term property strategy to replace homes that are poorly maintained or physically unsuitable. There are also recommendations around workforce reform, better training for supervision and long-term planning, as well as a more inclusive approach involving residents, families and staff in future decision-making. And significantly, the report recommends that Manx Care actually consider transferring responsibility for ALDS to a specialist provider with a proven track record in transforming learning disability services.
So how has Manx Care responded to all this?
Well, Chief Executive Teresa Cope has acknowledged the seriousness of the findings. She says some changes are already underway, but meaningful reform will take time, collaboration and the right mix of skills and investment. She's calling for long-term commitment and says there's no quick fix, but the message from campaigners is fairly clear. They want to see urgent action. Fran Tinkler from Manx Mencap, she's a director, says these issues have been known for years. She described the report as confirming what many families have experienced firsthand and says this can't be another case of a report gathering dust.
So potentially a turning point then, but one that's going to need sustained political and operational will.
Yeah, exactly. That is exactly it. The findings are stark, the recommendations are detailed, and now the focus shifts to whether Manx Care and the wider system has the capacity and resolve to actually deliver real change. But if there is one thing that we do know, it's that Tynwald members are already outspoken about provision for those with disabilities and the like. So the chances are this will be under the political spotlight before long.
Christian Jones, Guramayad, thank you for joining us. 14 minutes past 5, you're listening to Update on Manx Radio. The chair of Castletown Commissioners says a lengthy delay to the second phase of its School Hill housing redevelopment scheme was due to the tender process. Tony Brown says that has now ended and the local authority is waiting for money to be released from Treasury to cover the cost of the project. He hopes the second phase will be completed in about 2 years and is estimated to cost $11.5 million.
Phase 2 will consist of 18 bungalows, of which 2 are for disabled, and there'll be 22 bedroom houses, 8 3-bedroom houses and 2 4-bedroom houses, so it gives a mix of properties in addition to what have already been built. And that phase will start as soon as we got Treasury approval and as soon as the contract is up and running, if I use that term. And I think we'll all be pleased to see it go. There's been quite a lengthy delay because initially the original contractor was not able to progress with agreement with the Commissioners and Treasury into the next phase. And so the Commissioners had to re-tender for the contracts based on what was projected in Phase 2.
And have you got an expected timeline for Phase 2 at all?
There is a timescale that's built into the contract, but I mean, at this stage, that's got to be finalised. It is finalised in one way, but I'm not able to give an actual date of completion because, of course, sometimes things drift. I can't remember 100%, but I think it's something like 18 months, 2 years before that phase would be completed, but I stand to be corrected on that.
Do the Commissioners have any other plans for social housing in the town?
Well, at the moment, the Public Sector Housing Commissioners we're looking to complete this one. We've deferred Phase 3, which wasn't going to be gone into detail because we want to consider the options to give opportunities for the best housing in the town that we think our people need, so we've been able to pause that. The Farrance Way house, or Farrance Park houses I should say, in Castletown, which are Commissioners' public sector houses, they're being reviewed a bit of longer term. I mean, we're years off really, but we are aware of the construction of those houses. They've had major repairs done over their lifetime, and we are conscious that we need to consider what the future of those houses are. But I mean, we're talking really, I suspect, 10 years away.
That's the chair of Castletown Commissioners, Tony Brown.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Well, on the TT course, there's a break in proceedings for the time being, but the mountain road is staying closed. The rest of the course is currently open, but will be closing again fully by 6 o'clock. All roads around the course set to reopen tonight by 9:30. Over at the airport, the 5 o'clock EasyJet flight to Manchester slightly delayed until past, but otherwise tonight's flight's looking good to go. Now, the sailings. The Isle of Man steam packet has updated its sailing schedule for this weekend following weather disruption in recent days. So from tonight through to Sunday evening, Manannan sailings, that's those between the island, Liverpool and Belfast, will depart 2 hours later than originally scheduled. So for starters, the 4 o'clock sailing to Liverpool is currently delayed until 6 o'clock, the Manannan still in the harbour. And it's a late one for anyone on the 8:45 evening return to Douglas, which will now depart at 11:15, arriving here around 1:30 in the morning. Check-in will open from 6:45 and will close at 9:45 to ensure a prompt departure. Monday's schedule is set to operate as planned though, and this weekend's Manxman sailings between Douglas and Heysham are not affected.
Ask how you can spread the cost interest-free at Quayside. You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
And it's now 18 minutes past 5. A group of lobbyists from the island are calling on the Isle of Man government to take stronger action against Israel as the conflict in Gaza continues. They've held vigils on Douglas Promenade every Friday for the Palestinian people since the ceasefire ended back in March. But they've seen their numbers increase over the last several weeks, with over 120 people coming out last week despite the rain. Philip Matthews is the chair of Amnesty International Isle of Man.
Last Friday, the atmosphere was completely different. We had more than 120 people turn out, and it was very highly emotional.
So is the group calling on Tynwald and politicians to say more and set out maybe a stance that does differ from the UK or from other countries?
Yes, and in recent weeks we've started to write to MHKs again, and we're asking them to revisit that motion from last April. We've also started to now use the phrase that the Isle of Man is complicit in the genocide, and we are calling it a genocide now. It's a textbook genocide. It's acknowledged by majority of the world and most humanitarian organisations. There is nothing stopping the Isle of Man sending a message to the UK, expressing its concerns. Jersey did it. Jersey did it way before we even passed that motion in April, and that's another Crown dependency.
Tonight's vigil will take place, as always, down on Douglas Prom between 6 and 7 o'clock. 5:20 now. The fastest newcomer in TT history is confident his record can be broken at this year's event. Glenn Irwin, who set the benchmark of 129.8 mile per hour in his only TT appearance in 2022, was also asked by Radio TT if he misses taking part in the racing fortnight after retiring from road racing completely last year.
Yeah, look, I love visiting the Isle of Man, even outside of TT fortnight. Yeah, of course, when you're standing here now and you see the conditions, and I was watching the guys come on the Glencrutchery Road from where I'm staying, and they're all looking into you when you're giving a little bit of a hand gesture to cheer them on, and they're having fun. And I like having fun on bikes, but look, we're here in a rule to come and to enjoy ourselves, and working at the Ginger Hole all week with some guests there, and just watching a lot of your friends fighting for victories.
What are your thoughts on Mitch Rees? He's doing pretty well this week as a newcomer, isn't he?
Yeah, Mitch is a fantastic talent. I think he has a big future in road racing. I fully expect the newcomer record. Like, I haven't spoke to Mitch personally, and I wouldn't tell him directly, but maybe he watches this at the end of the fortnight. He will break the fastest newcomer record. The game's moved on. The top speeds back when I done it were 1:33 that year. They're going to do probably 1:36 or whatever. He is already quite fast in the very brave sections as such, where I struggled, and it's admirable. The guy's a top 10 Australian motocross rider as well, I think. So that's a very talented lad who clearly has a big future in road racing. So I hope Mitch breaks it, because records are there to be broke.
And for those couple of newcomers in the solos that are here this week, got Barry and Mitch, what would be your best advice for them?
Do you know what? It's to let it come, completely enjoy it. The pace really comes. I was looking through my laps the other day. My brother Andrew wrote them all down, and by night 3, night 4, night 3 we had done 126 something mile an hour. Just keep doing what they're doing, enjoy it, listen to all the advice, don't take chances, soak it up, enjoy the whole experience.
That was Glenn Irwin, the fastest TT newcomer, speaking to Radio TT there. 5:22. A rare piece of Viking gold unearthed by a Manx metal detectorist has been declared treasure. The fragment of a gold arm ring dates back 1,000 years and was found earlier this year by Ronald Clucas. I went down to see it for myself at the Manx Museum and to speak to Curator for Archaeology at Manx National Heritage, Alison Fox.
We've had another amazing find of some Viking Age treasure, this time a piece of Viking Age gold, which is incredibly rare, not just for the Isle of Man, but generally through the Viking world, really. It's pretty much half of what would have been an arm ring or a bracelet kind of thing, and it's been made from plaited gold wires. And it's been found by Ronald Clucas, who's been detecting for 50 years, so this is his golden anniversary of detecting, so it's quite nice. He's found a fantastic bit of gold.
And what does it mean, this find, for the Isle of Man in terms of tracing our history?
It's kind of adds to the story of the Vikings and the Isle of Man being this central trading post to what they were doing. The Vikings were all about trade. They were all about doing deals. We have fantastic coin hoards from here. We also have some amazing jewellery and metalwork that they found. But one of the things that I found really interesting about this particular piece was it was a beautiful piece of jewellery. Generally in archaeology on the Isle of Man we do jewellery really, really well. It's very intricate, as I say, made from 8 rods of gold. But despite its beauty and its worth to the person who owned it, at some point it was cut in half and then cut again and then squished together and then buried or lost. So, over and above that aesthetic appeal and potentially this skill that was available on the island, it might be that these things were being made here. Over and above that, they weren't shy of thinking, right, well, I need the cash, so there it goes.
That's Alison Fox there from Manx National Heritage. It is a fascinating find, and that gold arm ring will go on display in the Viking Gallery at the Manx Museum from tomorrow. Well, some will describe Rob Pritchard as a treasure himself, and he joins us in the studio now with the latest sporting news. Faster my, Rob.
That's a dubious term, but I'll take it. Faster my, Lewis. I suppose we must start with the first part of the TT doubleheader today, because 3 qualifying lap records were broken during this afternoon's qualifying session for TT 2025. The first of those came in the sidecar class, as local duo Ryan and Callum Crowe first broke the 3-wheel qualifying benchmark at 119.668 miles an hour from a standing start. before going faster at 120.202 miles an hour on their second and flying lap. Elsewhere, qualifying records were broken in 2 other classes. First, Dean Harrison in the Super Sport at 128.093 miles an hour, then Michael Dunlop in the Super Twin at 122.159 miles an hour. Harrison was also on top elsewhere with a pace of 132.853 miles per hour, the fastest speed of the entire afternoon in the Superstock section, whilst Davey Todd went quickest in the Superbike class at 132.673 miles an hour. Well, Todd's time was part of an 8:10 Racing 1-2 in Superbike qualifying, as teammate Peter Hickman went second fastest, whilst Manxman Connor Cummins completed the top 3 on the Burroughs Engineering RK Racing BMW. Hickman and Todd also finished second and third respectively behind Harrison in the Superstock, and making up the Supersport top 3 was Harrison, followed by Dunlop and Hickman. And in the Super Twins, Michael Dunlop's blistering pace saw him sit atop the standings, ahead of Manxman, Michael Evans and Dominic Herbertson in third. And part 2 of today's TT doubleheader is due to get underway shortly, with this evening's contingency session being used. The mountain road remains closed and all roads around the course will shut again at 6 p.m. Then, in a slight change, there's now a combined solo session for Superbike, Superstock and Super Sport machines at 6:30. Super Twins won't be going out this evening. That session will then be followed by sidecars at 7:50. Roads will then reopen no later than 9:30 p.m.
Rob Pritchard, Guru Mayed. That's it for Update Tonight. Jason Moore is here next with Greatest Hits. You can listen back to tonight's programme as a podcast, available shortly over at manxradio.com. Whatever you're up to, whether you're watching the racing or staying at home with the curtains drawn, enjoy your weekend. And Update will be back at the same time on Monday.